Boom. So today's live Q&A, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We got like 10 questions. So nice. Nice, guys. Okay, so the first one we've got is, can a person go from narcissistic to codependent? Yes, absolutely. Narcissism, i.e. narcissistic personality disorder, will typically fawn towards you when you start to leave them, and then they'll appear codependent, they'll appear needy, they need you, they're going to change, something's going to be different, things like that. And narcissistic people will do that too, because it exists on a spectrum. There's a book called The Human Magnet Syndrome, written by a man named Ross Rosenberg, and he posits the idea that narcissism and codependency are a relationship spectrum, and in the middle is interdependency, where we have a healthy sense of self and a healthy means of bonding and creating cooperation and relationship with others. And so, depending on what's going on in the circumstance, the codependent side of the narcissistic person can really become pronounced, because maybe you're pulling away, you're putting up boundaries, you're actually executing a consequence, and they're going to fawn in order to get you back into the cycle with them. I've personally gone through this. I've actually done this myself too, because on the inverse of this, codependents can become narcissistic, guys. Narcissism, like true pronounced NPD, is not something most people have, but all of us have narcissistic tendencies or habits. I certainly did, and mine were controlling people and being demeaning in order to get them to stop attacking me, because I had a real issue with accountability. I always played the victim. But I didn't have an empathy issue. That's kind of the trick here. True people with true narcissism, malignant narcissism, or even benign narcissism, lack empathy. They don't understand that other people have a different point of view. They have feelings about things, and those things matter. Codependents, we're hyper absorbent, and we have over amplified empathy. And so we get absorbed and into that. And so that's the big differentiator there. But both sides of the spectrum can have those toxic behaviors of controlling and belittling and pleasing and fawning and all that. So, yes, people can swap that way. What really matters here, guys, though, is that you're having an experience of toxic behaviors. It doesn't actually fundamentally matter if they're narcissistic or not. It matters that they're toxic. It matters that their behaviors are toxic and that you're hurting. And how they respond to that is what's going to define whether or not the relationship falls into a toxic category or a healthy category. Healthy people will respond with empathy, with accountability, and with integrity. They will work to change that. Unhealthy people will not do that. They will victim blame, they will avoid, they'll make promises and not follow through, so they lack integrity, that kind of thing. We want to be really mindful about how people respond to accountability for their behavior, because that's what defines it. I mean, everybody's got bad habits, and sometimes we even have toxic behavior. I certainly did. And it was accountability that allowed me to change those things. And it's accountability that allows us to grow. We combine accountability with integrity, we can actually accomplish quite a bit in our lives, become much healthier people for ourselves and for others. So, yes, narcissistic people can be codependent too. Because remember, these are survival strategies. These are not identities. Okay? But fundamentally, you have to ask yourself the question, am I being treated with love and respect? Do I feel safe? Having needs, feelings, boundaries, complaints? Am I feeling seen and valued for who I am? Because if you can't answer yes to those questions, you're not in a healthy relationship. Okay? And that's what I want you guys to think about. Because a lot of times in relationship dynamics, especially codependency and narcissism, we're thinking about, is this person a narcissist? It doesn't even matter if they're a narcissist. It matters if they're toxic or not. How are they responding to problems and pain, accountability, integrity, growth, things like that. Okay? All right. All right. So, comment about echoing. So I mentioned the concept of echoing in a couple. I think it was Tuesday that and I'm trying to remember the context around it. But generally, echoing is this idea of. It depends on which, because there's different kinds of echoes. So I might have to look at the context in the video to really pull that one out because my brain's not giving it to me. But a lot of times we will mimic other people, and I tend to call that echoing as well. They do a thing, so we'll do it back. And that makes us appealing to people. We instinctively know that if we model someone else, we will become more attractive to them. In fact, this is an unconscious thing people do all the time. When we have attraction to another human being, we will actually mimic the human being. We'll pick up their mannerisms, their tonality, the words they use, the phrases they use, body gestures, because we are mirroring them and we're kind of internalizing our experience with them because we really, really like them. So it feels good to do that. So that's one way we can know if someone's actually genuinely attracted to us, is because they'll actually subtly mimic us. So, and that's also how we can see if we're attracted to somebody, because we're taking on things from them. All right, so next question is, so what can we do to stop absorbing and protecting our energy field? I touched on that in yesterday's video, but yes, we can ground, we can use different kinds of visualization and shielding. The biggest practice is to mentally understand that their feelings, their thoughts, their choices, their consequences are over there. We have to create separation in our awareness from them. I have my feelings, my priorities, my needs, my wants, and they have theirs. So there's separation. That space allows us to not absorb, but rather move into the observation component of life and respond to that from that point of view. All right, so that's how we deal with that one. So if you want more information, check out yesterday's video about empathy and maintaining boundaries, right? Stop absorbing them. All right. Another question is, I don't know how to not control versus keeping myself open, so what do I do? So control is all about fear. It's all about a belief that things are scarce, things aren't going to work, and that I must force this to happen. And when it comes to relationships, that means we're going to be dominating another person. We're going to be in their yard. We're going to have a fantasy about them. One of the big things about control is the fantasy. We take phrases or terms they might say to us early on, and we might extrapolate that into something else. I had a very bad habit early on in my dating life, way back when I was a teenager. Somebody would say, hey, I like you, and then I'm like, oh God, they love me. Yeah, no, they said I like you. And then if it grew into love, which only happened once, my brain took that to, oh, we're going to get married. So we have fantasies playing in the background that we don't realize are influencing how we understand other people when we're dating. And that sends us up into this idea of control, because then when things don't work out, we feel betrayed, we feel confused, we feel like maybe we were lied to. Some of that might come from our fantasy, some of that may be legitimate. We'd have to be, obviously that's contextual to whatever the person's going through. But first of all, with control, is we got to acknowledge we have a fantasy, and two, we've got to respect autonomy, which means we have to accept that we have no control. Once we give up the game of controlling another person, then we can start the game of receiving people as they are. And this tends to sober us up pretty deeply. Receiving means I understand and I am hearing them for what they say. I'm seeing them for what they do. I'm acknowledging what I actually feel about the experience I have with them. Some of those will be positive and euphoric feelings. Some of them will not be. You're going to have both. That tells you you're being realistic. Okay? So receiving means I'm going to take the person as they are. And then when it comes to meeting needs, getting what we want, getting what we need in a relationship, it comes back to, and this is all about dating, guys. This is not about established relationships. They have different parameters that should already be in place based on the dating experience. So in dating, the idea is to discover rather than commit. Because most people, especially as codependents, want to be in the middle of a relationship, which means we want commitment. And we treat dating that way, and that screws the whole thing up. We need to explore the person we're getting to know, because your feelings are not an accurate representation of the entire picture, for the simple fact that you do not know the person. You just don't know them. So you may be having feelings like, God, I've been looking for you all my life. This is really amazing. I'm grateful for you. You're so attentive. You're kind. You're loving. You're this. You're that. Those are euphoric feelings, but they are part of your fantasy, not part of the reality yet. If the person's consistent behavior, their character, and who they show up as over a period of time remain consistent with the person they showed up as when you started dating, and you get to know more about them, so the person you discover they are as you date them stays in line with that, and you still feel that way, then you're getting more into an accurate point of view. But you got to understand that this is about discovery, and this part of this is going, wow, how do the things I want and need in a relationship get filled in this relationship? How are they not being filled? What is it? Do I have to advocate for myself a lot, or does it happen organically? What happens when I ask? What happens when I'm told no? What happens when I say no? What happens when I say yes? We want to get into the real practical physics of the relationship to understand who this person is on a consistent basis. This means we're not looking at just one event. We're looking at a pattern in their behavior. That allows us to have an honest experience, and that requires both time and experience, right? We need both in order to kind of excite the true person out into the open. And experience means conflicts and play and intimacy and fun and companionship, problems and challenges. The range of experiences need to be varied enough to where we really get a feel for the person. Okay, so this is how we know if the person we're dating is a good fit for us because of what's going on for us, and we need to be mindful about how we're a fit for them. In dating, there is a priority order that you need to be mindful of, and it starts with this: how do they fit me, and how do I fit them? Okay, and it's always me first, because if I don't pay attention to me, I will be absorbed into them. That's what the codependent programming will do. So we get around that by going, ooh, I'm going to choose me first, which means how do they fit me? Am I happy here? And then we can start asking that question too, are they happy with me? Because if maybe they're great for me and I'm not great for them, and that happens. I've been in that one a few times, and vice versa. It's dating. That's what dating does. I don't mean to be cold or unreasonable there, but dating it's basically the game of no until you find a yes. So it's gonna suck. It's gonna have that exposure. We need to really understand that dating isn't about commitment. It's about discovery, and one day you'll discover a commitment to make, and you might get married or move into a long-term relationship or something, but it's discovered. So when it comes to like being open, the idea is not to put too much, don't put the incorrect expectation into dating. Openness means I'm going to get to know you. I'm going to see what happens. And I'm going to be really responsible about my own fantasies that I bring into this experience. Because if I know, for me personally, if I'm really into somebody, even though I don't know them that well, I get emotionally attached. And I have my own little fantasy. I know that. So I need to bring that to the table and respect that and honor it. And then I can deal with it straight up. That makes it for a safer experience for me and them, because it's like, yeah, I really like you, but I don't know who you are, so I need to take my time here. That way I'm not moving into la la land with it. Instead, I get to really ground and see who they are and take my time with it. That's what openness is about. It's a willingness to get to know someone and to reveal yourself without projecting the past onto these people that you're meeting, and not projecting your fantasy onto them either. And that can be really, really tricky, but it's an essential component into healthy dating. So that's a big answer to that. So you don't have any control, so accept it and learn how to use the experience of dating somebody and discovering them to find out how they meet your needs, how they meet your wants, how they don't. Because nobody's going to meet them all the time. So you need to know how they respond to that and how you do. And work out any kind of resentment or resistance or judgment or projection you might have from your past experiences first, so that you can feel open to dating. Do not date when you're lonely. Do not date when you're angry. Do not date when you're horny. Do not date when you're resentful. Do not date until you're really curious about what's out there and you would like to experience a relationship. That energy is vitally important, and do not date until you know who you are. And when I say that word know, I mean you have a good grounded sense of your body. You're willing to respond to your body when it says, no, I don't like this, or this isn't working, or yes, let's do this. And you're willing to stand up for yourself, say no, and walk away. If you're willing to do those things, you're ready to date. Next year, I'll have the Dating to Discover system, which will be cool, so you guys can run through that. But that's where I would start with now. Okay, next question is, what causes narcissism? There's a lot of theory out there. There's actually no facts on what causes narcissism. I believe narcissism is a product of nurture plus nature. I think certain kinds of brains are more predisposed to a narcissistic take rather than a codependent take. And I think some of that deals with personality and developmental stages. But generally, the idea is that narcissism is the result of a deep narcissistic or identity-based wound that causes the individual to invert on themselves, and their survival strategy is to become grandiose so that they can't be exposed because of this deep shame they might feel about whatever it is they went through. So that's my take on that. So yeah. I'm struggling with not wanting to ever be the bad guy. Husband does a good job playing. Okay, so being the bad guy is a judgment. Are you judging yourself as the bad guy for having boundaries, for saying no, for saying yes, for having expectation of your adult children? Are you judging yourself as the bad guy? Because if you give that judgment up around being the bad guy, then you can actually be self-advocating, right? And if somebody wants to label you the bad guy, give them permission to. So what if you're the bad guy? It's not going to end anything. It'll cause some disruption in relationships. It'll suck in certain areas, but it doesn't mean you're the bad guy, so you don't have to absorb that as truth. The idea really here is to stop playing the game of being what you think, being what they tell you to be, okay? And the idea comes around to like, oh, I can be a bad guy because I respect myself, and when I respect myself, I also respect them. So when I have boundaries for me, it's boundaries for them too. And they don't want it. They don't like it. They're adult children. They can deal with it. So another question is, what is a mother's role with adult children? That's for you to determine. Generally, my personal opinion, because I'm a year away from having an adult child, my job as a parent is to raise an adult, and then allow that child that's becoming an adult to receive consequences of their choices and learn how to deal with those consequences. So when my children are adults, I'll be like, what do you want to do with your life? Where are you going to go? What's your plans? I allow them to solve their problems. You know, if they were living with me and they're not contributing to the household by having a job, paying bills, actually living a life, then that's going to be a boundary. I'd be like, hey, you need to get a job, you need to contribute, or you need to go to school, you need to make a decision for yourself because I'm not going to pay for your existence. You're an autonomous being, get out there, work your power, make a life for yourself. That's how I see it with adult children. Time to grow up and go out, do your thing. So I'm kind of blunt that way. So I think that's generally a parent's role, not specifically a mother or father's role, but in general, they need to go out there and live their lives. Yes, you will have your own identity when you decide to start advocating for yourself and stop absorbing messages from others about who you are. Part of that's coming back to your body, being anchored in who you are, being anchored in the experience of your body first, and then tuning into your own thoughts and feelings, opinions about things. That's when you start to hear yourself again. And then when you start doing that, then you have access to channel into your value, your worth as a human being, and more of who you are will start showing up again. All right, so another one is being too trusting. For being too trusting, that means we are not auditing. We are not stepping in and seeing if they deserve trust. Trust is not something anybody deserves out of the gate. Trust is something that's earned. And trust is earned by how they respect our boundaries, how reliable they are, how accountable they are, how they maintain our privacy, aka what's called vault, their level of integrity, words and actions lining up, how non-judgmental they are about the things we bring to them, and how generous, warm they are to us. Not generous as in giving us stuff, but they have a kind and attentive awareness towards us. Like if we make a mistake, they're not going to assume it was malicious. They're going to say, oh yeah, you made a mistake, you'll take care of it, kind of thing. That's a Bravey model from Brene Brown. A really, really, really simple take on those qualities, but trust is earned based on a pattern of behavior of those qualities. So, do you need to stop trusting out of the gate and start asking yourself, how are they behaving? Are they earning my trust? Do I want to trust them? Because trust is a privilege. It's not something anybody is entitled to. So, it's a good boundary there. Last question we have is, what can I do to feel whole again and be myself again and regain that light and aliveness I used to have inside? Well, that's about healing, and that's going to be a process. It's not going to be instant. So if you're looking for an instant response, like, oh, how can I get instantly back there? It's not going to happen. What is going to happen is you release shame and fear, guilt and fatigue, and you integrate more love, and you get closure on trauma, and you start understanding who you are from a value perspective, like I'm worth knowing, loving, and keeping, and I can feel that for myself. That's where you're going to start to feel that wholeness again, and that brightness, that light, and that aliveness will come back. And that's partly what the heal process and the 12 weeks of heal in Codependency Confidence help you accomplish, along with the addiction to connection, 12 weeks of training there, and the ongoing trainings in Thrive Strategy. So since you're a member of Codependency Confidence, that will do that there. Guys, if you're not a member of that, you can join that pretty easily. You have to take the master class, though. So you go to workshop2.freeself.com, take the master class, and then apply to join, and then we'll let you know in 24 hours if you're accepted. All right. So that's the answers to today's questions. Thank you, guys, for these questions. I appreciate you. Thank you for showing up and supporting each other like you do in the community. Thank you for your support of me, helping me grow this impact, this movement, and basically taking or creating confidence out of codependency, helping you guys discover that brilliance that you truly are, and so that you can really know for yourself that you're worth knowing, loving, and keeping. So you guys have a great evening. I will see you guys tomorrow for Marshall's Minute, and we'll talk with you guys next week in our next Q&A in a week from today too as well. You guys have a great day. Bye-bye.